And for Florida State, here as they're hosting Miami and Tallahassee, the Noles have already scored one major win at home to impress recruits. Now it's time to see if they can do it again for the second time in just over a month. Joining us to talk on Warchant TV today is Steve Wiltfong, On3 Rivals Vice President of National College Football Recruiting and the Transfer Portal. We welcome Steve from the national scene down here to Tallahassee so he can speak about Florida State. Michael Langston, Senior Recruiting Analyst, Warchant.com, also here. Steve, let's get right to it. There's a piece that's available on warchant.com from earlier this week, On3 National, Rivals National, reporting about what Florida State could potentially do if it wins the game. Obviously, it's going to provide a wonderful atmosphere, 7:30 p.m. on Saturday night. But what is it that you see that Florida State is doing this major week, biggest game they have left on their home schedule, and what they could do if they score an upset over Miami this weekend in terms of the 2026 class and beyond?
Well, obviously, they're in the thick of it for some flip targets, some guys that were always high on Florida State. But when they made their decisions in the summer, the Seminoles were coming off a 2-10 football season, and there was some doubt about how this football team would respond to that and what that would mean for the future of this football program and coaching staff. But with the Seminoles coming out in week one and dominating Alabama in the fashion that they did, they have showed that they are ready to put that season behind them and get back to competing for an ACC championship and college football playoff. Now, they took a tough loss on Friday night against a good Virginia team on the road in what is a bit of a trap game, obviously, with Miami coming to town. Now, you get a little more slack and leeway in the new modern college football as far as your postseason is concerned with the 12-team playoff. But for Florida State, it's a week-to-week thing. Every Saturday is an opportunity for them to continue to erase what was a devastating season last year. And I think recruits are excited about Florida State and the trajectory of this program. They've always loved the coaching staff. And Mike Norvell made some big-time changes to his staff following the season, hired a new defensive coordinator, Tony White, a new offensive coordinator, Gus Malzahn. And we've seen programs like Florida State quickly flip the script and turn around after awful seasons. We saw Brian Kelly do it at Notre Dame one year. I think they were 4-8, went 10-2. We saw Jim Harbaugh do it at Michigan, an awful COVID season, to come back and win 4 straight Big Ten titles, ultimately a national title. So Coach Norvell made some tough decisions, made some staff changes, brought in some coaches that have outstanding resumes, and they came out strong and beat Bama and got off to a hot start, and they're looking to respond to this from the loss to Virginia. I talked to the dad of our number 1 ranked player in the country, Bryson Wright, 2028 receiver, as dominant a receiver as there is in the country, regardless of class. And he said, we'll find out a lot about FSU this weekend against Miami, the number 3 team in the country, with the way they respond to last week's loss. And I think you saw some evidence of maybe some look ahead, certainly from Thomas Castellanos on Twitter, tweeting at some fans. And this is the game. This is an opportunity for you to continue to set the tone for where this program is going to be at moving forward. A big home game against an undefeated Miami team, some top targets in 2027 and 2028 you're looking to set the tone with. And certainly as you try and build up a recruiting class that ranks number 15 nationally right now, with plenty of options still out there and some big fish maybe still in play.
Michael Langston, I'm going to come to you in just a second in terms of the guys that Florida State's bringing on campus, especially the guys that are already committed. But Steve, Florida State is looking to grab a lot of guys that are committed elsewhere or maybe wavering in their commitments elsewhere and bring them into Tallahassee so that they can be around all the commits that they have for the 2026 cycle. How is Florida State doing in that regard as we sit here today?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank Mike Langston for coming on the show today. Scooble is pitching right now in the playoffs as we record, up 1-0.
Yeah.
And he's over here talking Florida State recruiting and potential flips in the big recruiting weekend, accommodating my time. Look, I think Florida State is on the verge of flipping tight end Corbin Fordham from Ohio State. He's a legacy recruit that gave the Buckeyes his pledge early in the process, but Florida State, Chris Thompson and company have stayed on this one. The start to the season, just the family ties, the affection he has for the program. This one looks like it is going the Seminoles' way. One guy that Florida State would love to see on campus this weekend, I'll be interested to see if he does make it inside Doak Campbell Stadium, because he's on the Warchant visitor list. I've heard from other people that he's not going to go, so we'll see what happens. The number 2 running back in the country, Derek Cooper. And I think Florida State is the biggest threat to Texas. And if he visits this weekend, that intensifies my opinion. And if he doesn't, it just continues to mean that he is going to be a tough flip for the Longhorns and what Texas has put in place to date. Some other flip targets: Cameron Wilson, edge rusher, committed to Syracuse. He is excited to be in Tallahassee. I talked to him this morning. He thinks Florida State's going to get the W against Miami. He spoke highly of the Noles. I'll have more on Warchant soon. And Caden Hall just posted a story. Haven't been able to link it to Warchant yet, but Florida safety commit Caden Hall, his status is upgraded from maybe to definite. He will be at Florida State this weekend instead of Gainesville. Now, he is still excited about his future at Florida, and Coach Sunseri wants to be a Gator, but he grew up a Florida State fan, and he has heard the whispers around Gainesville that we've all heard. So we'll see if Florida can get back on track against Texas. If they can't, this could be a big opportunity for Florida State to swoop back in for one of the state's best in 2026. We know the list of guys in the 2026 class committed elsewhere will grow by kickoff, because that is the Florida thing to do. It has been a rite of passage for years. Even if they're not on Flip Watch, they show up at, if you're committed to one of the three, you still show up at other games at the other two with your buddies and soak it all in.
Michael, we know the 3:30 atmosphere for Alabama that opening weekend was unbelievable. All the kids that were on campus said so. This is now a primetime kickoff. It is going to be an event, and Florida State obviously bringing in all of their commits. Jaden O'Neal is going to be there. All the receivers are going to be there. Xavier Tiller, among so many others, are going to be on campus. Talk to me about how Florida State is setting the stage to make a great impression on maybe some kids that aren't committed to Florida State as they get into town in Tallahassee this weekend.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's obviously a massive weekend. For them, we kind of illustrated what they need to do in the Alabama game. I said that, hey, they need to win one of these. Certainly to have a chance to win two of them. So it sets up the kind of, is FSU real type of thing. I'm gonna have a feature coming up of just the three factors that I feel like that can really accomplish a big recruiting momentum. But it's setting up really well. I think Steve's gone through all the names and had those on there for a while as far as some of those prospects. So it's a chance to show you and really just put a stamp on what your program is, what this team's going to be. And I think to Steve's point, it's about showing the proven product of what these kids feel. They very much believe in what Norvell is doing and believe in what this team's doing. Now it's just about making that emphatic boom this weekend, and certainly a win definitely accomplishes all that. So I think there's a lot of excitement, Tom, behind the scenes when I talk with FSU about what they feel like this could be as far as how the weekend would mature. But I think overall, they're going into getting all these kids on campus, but they want people to see it and they want to show it. It's just like the Alabama game. They want to show what they are. And so I think that's kind of the way I look at it.
One commit that's coming back is Jay Timmons. We love him. He's a 5-star caliber prospect, legacy recruit committed to Florida State. Was at Penn State last weekend. Ohio State is trying to get involved, but he is hyped, his words, to get back down to Doak Campbell Stadium, Florida State, get around the guys. And you got programs like Georgia Tech poking around on tight end Xavier Tiller, defensive lineman Tico Crinodon. Those guys have been at Georgia Tech this fall. So Florida State getting them back on campus is big. And then as far as just getting these other top targets on campus, just seeing them soak in the environment, watch this football team be exciting on both sides of the ball schematically is something that is important as they work towards flips. And then in 2027, these guys are making decisions earlier and earlier. A couple 5-stars expected. Number 1 ranked offensive tackle, number 1 player in the state, Mark Matthews, who has always spoke highly of his relationships with Florida State. What's the product on the field look like? He's been to Miami already a couple times this year. Joshua Dobson's the number 1 corner in the country. He's been making the rounds. Clemson, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, South Carolina, Tennessee, some of the games he's already been to. So can Florida State get a win in front of these guys? We know Florida State can win in relationships. We know Florida State can win in modern recruiting, NIL warfare. Can they win on the field? They got 2 linebackers there in what good position for Caden Henderson from in-state. And I already have the Noles predicted for a top 10 linebacker, Gregory Batson from Georgia. He was at that Alabama game. He said Florida State is his leader, and it's going to take quite a bit for him to change his mind. Imagine him coming back down to Doak Campbell Stadium for another massive home win. That would certainly help continue to set the tone in his process.
So, Steve, I want to end with this particular question because Florida State, a lot of traditional matchups coming up, a couple of big ones with Clemson and Florida, but because of the wins and losses, it doesn't have quite the juice that this weekend has. Is this Florida State's best opportunity and really their last legitimate opportunity maybe to take the national stage and make a statement about what they are as a football team in the eyes of 26 recruits and 27 recruits for this football season? Because unfortunately, Clemson and Florida are struggling. They're struggling mightily so much now that their coaches maybe are being talked about being on hot seats or warm seats. So what about this weekend being the biggest opportunity for Florida State to make one more statement?
Well, just wild if they're on the hot seat at Clemson. But what I'll say is this is, as we've said, just a tremendous opportunity to accelerate your rebuild and get a win against one of the premier programs in the country. But for me, I think for Florida State, Mike Norvell and this coaching staff, it's more about the end game, the final product. How are you playing in October and November? What is your record that is going to help them close this recruiting class strong and then continue to get off and running in 2027? So they went 2-10 last year. I think if they were 8-4 this year, 9-3, that is a heck of a turnaround that will restore belief in these recruits. And if both coordinators are back next year and you have that foundation and symmetry, cohesion going on with your program, that's big on the trail, obviously. So this game is not going to be indicative, in my opinion, of how Florida State finishes on the trail. Now, I say that through the lens of I don't expect them to get their ass kicked. I expect them to be in this ball game, and in the fourth quarter, we're still locked in and tuned into this game. But it's the holistic overall record. And if Florida State can show a 6-game improvement or even a 7-game improvement from last year, it shows that this program resembles more the ACC team, title team, the team that won 10 games a couple years before that, than the one of last year, and that this is a program that is going to have consistency. It is going to develop players. It is going to play in big games, and it is back on track to winning and competing for an ACC championship. And if you win the ACC championship, what does that mean, boys?
Yeah, college football playoff.
College football playoff. So we'll see. I think it'll be exciting to see where they're at, how they bounce back against Miami from just the team internal approach. But this game doesn't take away from the rest of the season, and particularly the impact it could have on the recruiting trail. All wins matter, especially for a team that didn't win very many last year.
Michael, I'll give you the final word here. Your thoughts on all of that. Florida State, total record versus statement games. Obviously, if they start 0-2, you can kiss Charlotte goodbye. But This weekend can also signal a couple of things, win or loss. Just talk to me about the remaining schedule and then this weekend against Miami.
Yeah, we talked about the different factors, but you assume let's just play hypothetical. FSU wins this game, they will have the best 2 top 10 wins in the country when you look at it. So that's going to stick for the whole season. So this is a point where they can continue it through the whole season, even if you don't reach the ultimate goal of ACC champions. You'll still have these 2 wins, and it's going to linger for kids that are 2027. I've said that before. The Miami game is always about, guys that your future are going to recruit. Sure, it's going to help with 2026 kids, and it's going to touch it on national view. But I think overall, this game alone has such an impact. We saw last week with Virginia. I even tell my family, I was more concerned about Virginia than Miami. And I know that sounds crazy because Miami is so good and they're really good. But I feel there's a legitimate chance that FSU pulls this off. I'm not going to sit there and guarantee it, but I do feel if I was picking, I would probably pick FSU just because the things are rounding out the right way. And I think they certainly want to go out there and prove themselves. And they know this is kind of one of those last stands where you got to deliver. And I think it's going to be a great product. Now, how the game goes, nobody really knows. But overall, it's a phenomenal opportunity, and certainly if they get this, it's going to be certainly not, I don't say a tidal wave of momentum, but it'll be a strong push of momentum. Let's just say a mini wave of momentum, not mini tidal wave. So I think it's a massive opportunity, and certainly one that they planned for a while. So we'll have to see what they do. And as to C's point, kids see what they're doing, but it's a matter of just consistently doing it, week by week, Tom.
A massive opportunity for all of you out there is to head over to warchant.com right now and sign up for just $1 for your first week. An incredible weekend coming up in Tallahassee. Head over to the premium recruiting board. You're going to find Steve Wiltfong posts there. You're going to find Michael Langston, Matt Lasser, intel of what's going on in Tallahassee. It's going to be loaded up. We appreciate the vice president himself on Three Rivals, Vice President, National College Football Recruiting and Transfer Portal, Steve Wiltfong, for joining us today. Michael Langston, I'm sure we'll be talking very, very soon. Steve, we really appreciate the time. Thank you.
My pleasure. Look forward to talking to all y'all on the Warchant message board. I'll take all questions. Look forward to the interactions on the board, college football, anything. Be on Warchant, man. Looking forward to it.
We were just talking MLB hot stove-ish stuff before we signed on. That's what you get with the athletic bonus. So sign up right now, $1, round out your sports portfolio over at warchant.com. We'll talk to you next time right here on Warchant TV.